So you want real power in your life? You want to defeat and overcome? Let's talk about it. Let's start taking a stand on our life. Let's start doing things we've always wanted to do, but just have fallen short on. Let's change how we respond to problems. Let's find those desires that we want and let those lead us and not be a byproduct of all the fear we have in our life. So how do we do that? We're gonna do it by talking about having a better understanding of the mechanics of how we do it. Because, you know, personally, I get tired of people just saying, hey, just think positive. Hey, just think positive. What in the hell does just think positive mean? What am I supposed to think positive about when I can't even breathe because I'm so full of fear, or I got so much stress and anxiety in my life? Just think positive. I don't understand. I mean, I'm trying to think positive, and I've been at these spots in my life. I've been so afraid, so stressed, so led by fear that I couldn't even breathe, couldn't even eat. You know, thank God that darkness is behind me. But you know, I think we've all have been in different places that have just really challenged us, but for me, that's, you know, where I've learned. You know, I've always been a strong thinker. I've always been a pretty confident person. You know, so I remember I've always been into psychology and those kind of things, and up until a few years ago, or I don't know, over 5 years ago, you know, my spirituality grew and I became a Christian, you know, and then I began studying the Bible. But everything that I'm talking about will only strengthen your spirituality. Because, you know, you can be taught, you can be told something all day long, but if you don't understand how to do it, or understand why we do what we do, or understand why we roll up to the line on our motocross bike and we just don't have that passion we once had, we don't have that fire we once had, sometimes it's confusing why, and we really don't know why. So we're gonna talk about how to get that fire and passion back and how to overcome that doubt and fear. So I was talking that we program ourselves from a young age, and within our programming is all that fear, all that doubt. And so when things happen in our life, we respond out of our subconscious mind unconsciously without even knowing it, just the way we breathe. We breathe unconsciously, we don't think about it. We have over 50,000 thoughts a day, and many of those thoughts we don't even know are happening. You know, there's so many different thoughts that happen, and there's a lot of thoughts we are aware of, and that's one thing we want to do, is have a stronger awareness. We want to have better discernment and a stronger awareness of how we respond to things. We want to journal that. We want to journal it in our mind or journal it on paper, how we respond to certain situations, and then that's how we're going to begin to understand why we do what we do, or why we think the way we do, and then we're going to start attacking it and understanding it. So the first thing I want to talk about is we're going to talk about the unconscious mind, the subconscious mind, and the conscious mind. You see how small the conscious mind is? See how much smaller the conscious mind is compared to the subconscious? The subconscious mind is where the power is. It's where the beauty is. It's where your speed is. It's where you want to be the best motocrosser or racer you can be. It needs to happen from your subconscious. If you're too busy thinking about things all the time from your conscious mind, it's going to pass you by. Because the fast riders, it's happening to naturally, and as we're a young rider, we want to develop good habits and instill that into our programming. Our programming goes right down in here into our subconscious mind. That's where our programming is. That's also where our emotions reside. We're full of emotions. Every thought it has an emotion. So as we begin to reprogram our subconscious, or program our subconscious, that's where we want to program it with the right stuff. You know, our conscious mind is where our reasoning is, where our logic is, but a lot of times our emotions will always trump our logic. And we're going to talk about why our emotions will trump our logic. For one, they're coming out of the powerhouse. They're coming out of the bigger us. This is where the awesomeness is down here. This is where our programming is, and this is how we're going to naturally respond unconsciously. So we're an emotional person. We have every thought is wrapped in an emotion, whether it's positive or negative. And we need to understand and have awareness when we're having these negative thoughts. Maybe it's anxiety or fear, and we have to begin to ask ourselves, what are we thinking about to have that anxiety and fear? And we overcome that through prayer, if you're a Christian, through believing right, through thinking right. And these things I'm going to talk about will really help you with that. And you have to, what does faith mean? Faith is something that we trust. Faith is something that we believe in. Faith is something that we get an assurance in. Faith is something that we'll take that step on. It's an action. Without it, we won't do it. So many of our thoughts just happen naturally. When something happens in our life, good or bad, or there's a change in our life, where do you think that's pulling from? Where do you think our reaction is pulling from? Our reaction is pulling from our subconscious, because that's where our programming is. That's where our programming is. How do we respond to things? How does Dave respond to things naturally? How does he just naturally respond to things and deal with situations? Does he get mad? Does he get sad? Does he get full of anxiety? Does he get full of fear? Does he start talking a lot? Does he get quiet? What does he do? Well, that all happens in our subconscious, where our programming is. So if we can be aware of that and understand how the conscious mind and the subconscious mind works, we'll have a better understanding of how to deal with problems. The conscious mind is the gateway to our subconscious. So that's where we, above all things, guard our heart. Hold every thought captive. So our conscious mind, that's where our reasoning and logic is. So when something happens, we pull it up from our emotions and our programming through the subconscious. Naturally, we need to have an awareness. If we don't have this awareness, we'll never conquer things. We'll never defeat and overcome. We have to have this consciousness. And that reasoning and logic is where we go, hey, why are we so full of anxiety? Why are we so full of fear? What are we thinking about that's wrong? And I got to give credit to Keith Ryburn out there. Hey, buddy, appreciate you, man. Great dude. Keith made this post about the air filter. He's living an air filter life. And I absolutely love that, because that's what we have to do. We have to run everything through a filter. We have to hold every thought captive. So as this emotion comes up through our programming, good or bad, positive or negative, we have to then reason and figure out if it's good or bad and run it through this filter. Hold every thought captive. Well, we have to then turn around and give ourselves affirmations. An affirmation is different than positive thinking, because an affirmation inspires you. It gives you strength. But instead of thinking on that bad thought that comes up from our subconscious, we have to run it through this filter, this air filter. And it has to get caught before we allow it back down in and give it more thought, or plant the seed. We don't want that. We don't want to be sowing those seeds. So we have to run everything through that filter. Hold every thought captive. Above all things, guard your heart. We have to guard our heart. So that's a little bit about the conscious mind, the subconscious mind. Stay with us. Stay in tune with us. We're going to get more in depth on this. I promise it'll help if you apply it to your life. If you just go around thinking, I just need to be positive, that ain't going to do jack for you. There's no strength in that. There's no substance in that. So stay with us. Share our videos. We love shares. We love comments. Thanks a lot for hanging with us. Independence. Let's gain independence over our life. Let's take control over our life. Don't let it take control over you. If you have dreams, if you have fears, anxieties, worries, let's get a handle on that. Because if we don't get a handle on that, we live a depressed life. We live a life full of negative emotions. And actually we'll become a byproduct of all that fear that we have. And that fear will begin to lead us, and we'll operate from that fear. And there's no joy in life. That's not how we were made to live. We were born fearless. We were born to win. Let's reprogram ourselves to win. Thank you guys.